The night Isabella DeLuca's name disappeared from the guest list was the same night she decided to burn down the empire she built with her bare hands. She stood in the rain outside Manhattan's most exclusive gala, the one she secretly funded, watching her husband welcome another woman into the spotlight that should have been hers. 12 years of invisible work, 12 years of building an empire from blood money and dirty secrets. And in one humiliating moment, she realized the truth. The man she made king was trying to erase her from history. But you don't erase the architect. You don't survive it. Stay until the end. Drop a comment with your city name so I can see how far this story travels. Hit that like button. Let's begin. The rain hit the sidewalk like bullets. Isabella stood across the street from the Obsidian Tower, watching black limousines slide up to the red carpet one after another. Doors opened. Designer gowns emerged. Camera flashes erupted like small bombs. Inside that building, 300 of the wealthiest, most powerful people in New York were gathering for the annual DeLuca Legacy Gala, the crown jewel of Manhattan's social calendar. She'd organized every detail herself: the seating chart, the menu, the silent auction items, even the goddamn flowers. And her name wasn't on the list. Isabella pulled her coat tighter. Water dripped from the edge of her hood, running cold down the back of her neck. She'd stood at the entrance 10 minutes ago and watched the PR coordinator, some 23-year-old blonde with a tablet and an apologetic smile, scroll through the database 3 times looking for her name. "I'm sorry, ma'am, you're not in the system." Ma'am. Like she was nobody. Like she hadn't built the entire goddamn system. Her phone buzzed. She ignored it. Across the street, another limo pulled up. The door opened and Vincent stepped out. 6 feet of tailored Italian wool and manufactured charm. He smiled for the cameras, that easy grin that made people forget he'd started his career breaking kneecaps in Queens. The grin that made investors hand him their money. The grin that made senators return his calls. Then he turned and offered his hand. A woman stepped out beside him. Red dress. Dark hair swept up in an elegant twist. 28, maybe 30. Young enough to be hungry, old enough to be dangerous. Vivian Cross. Isabella's fingers tightened around her phone until the case creaked. She'd hired Vivian 6 months ago. Strategic consultant, the resume said. Harvard Business, 3 years at Goldman. References that checked out perfectly because Isabella had checked them herself. What the resume didn't say: Vivian had been sleeping with Vincent for 4 months. What it also didn't say: Vincent was planning to replace Isabella entirely. Isabella watched them walk the red carpet together. Vincent's hand on Vivian's lower back, Vivian laughing at something he whispered. The cameras loved it. Young, beautiful, powerful, the new face of the DeLuca empire. Isabella pulled out her phone and typed a single message. "Prepare the collapse." She hit send. Then she walked away from the gala, her heels clicking against wet concrete, and disappeared into the rain-soaked streets of Manhattan like smoke. Ishachamk. The DeLuca Financial Group occupied 17 floors in Midtown. On paper, it was a legitimate private equity firm managing $14 billion in assets. Charitable foundations, political action committees, real estate development funds, clean money, legal money. On paper. The truth lived in basement servers and encrypted drives and offshore accounts that didn't technically exist. The truth was that 12 years ago, Vincent DeLuca had been a mid-level enforcer for the Castellano family with a cocaine problem and a gambling debt that would have gotten him killed before his 40th birthday. Then he'd met Isabella. She'd been working as a forensic accountant for the Manhattan DA's office, tracking financial crimes through layers of corporate structure most investigators couldn't penetrate. She was good at it, too good. She could look at a balance sheet and see the ghost transactions underneath. The money that moved without moving, the profits that appeared from nowhere, the invisible threads connecting legitimate businesses to criminal enterprises. Vincent had been assigned to intimidate her into dropping a case. Instead, they'd gotten married. People called it a love story, some kind of Beauty and the Beast redemption arc. Reformed criminal meets brilliant woman. Criminal goes straight. They build something legitimate together. Bullshit. What actually happened? Isabella looked at Vincent's world, the chaos, the violence, the stupid waste of potential, and saw an opportunity. These people were moving hundreds of millions of dollars through the dumbest schemes imaginable. Wire transfers to fake construction companies, cash businesses that didn't bother hiding their numbers. Laundering operations a junior accountant could spot from space. They were amateurs playing with professional money, so Isabella made them professionals. She didn't reform Vincent. She optimized him. Within 2 years, the Castellano family's entire financial infrastructure ran through systems Isabella designed. Within 5 years, she'd consolidated 3 competing organizations into a single, streamlined operation. Within 8 years, the DeLuca Financial Group was handling money for half the criminal enterprises on the East Coast, and nobody could prove a goddamn thing. She'd built an empire invisible to law enforcement. An empire that looked like charity galas and political fundraisers and real estate development. An empire where dirty money went in one end and came out the other side so clean it sparkled. And she'd done it all while Vincent smiled for cameras and shook hands and took credit. Because that was the deal. He got to be the king. She got to build the kingdom. Except now he wanted a different architect. Isabella's penthouse overlooked Central Park from the 63rd floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows, minimalist furniture, art that cost more than most people's houses. She hated it. The whole place felt like a museum. Beautiful. Empty. Nothing in it was actually hers, just expensive things other people told her she should want. She poured herself 3 fingers of scotch and stood at the window, watching rain streak the glass. Her phone sat on the marble counter, silent. The message she'd sent would be working its way through channels right now. People would be waking up, checking secure emails, realizing something was happening. Good. Let them wonder. She took a drink. The scotch burned going down, but she didn't feel it. She didn't feel much of anything anymore. That was the problem with building empires out of lies. Eventually you forgot what the truth felt like. Her reflection stared back from the dark window. 42 years old. Still beautiful, people said, though she heard the still getting louder every year. Designer dress, perfect hair, diamond earrings Vincent had given her for their anniversary, back when he still pretended to remember anniversaries. She looked like success. She felt like a ghost. The door opened behind her. She didn't turn around. Only one other person had keys to this place. "You should have stayed at the Gala," Vincent said. His voice carried that careful, controlled tone he used when he was managing a situation. She'd heard him use it with prosecutors, with business rivals, with people who owed him money they couldn't pay. Now he used it with her. "My name wasn't on the list," Isabella said, still watching her reflection. "That was a mistake. Vivian's assistant screwed up the database." "Vivian's assistant?" "Yeah." "Interesting." Isabella took another drink. "When did Vivian start having an assistant who handles guest lists for my events?" Silence behind her. The kind of silence that confirmed everything. She turned around. Vincent stood in the doorway, still wearing his tuxedo, rain spotted across his shoulders. He looked tired, older than 53. The charm didn't reach his eyes anymore. "We need to talk," he said. "About how you're fucking Vivian? Or about how you're planning to push me out?" His jaw tightened. "Don't be dramatic." "Dramatic," Isabella laughed, a short, ugly sound. "I built everything you have, every dollar, every connection, every legitimate cover. You were a leg breaker with a coke habit, Vincent. I turned you into a billionaire. And I'm grateful." "Shut up." She set down her glass. "You don't get to be grateful. You get to tell me the truth. How long have you been planning this?" Vincent didn't answer. He walked to the bar, poured himself a drink. Buying time, calculating. That was the thing about Vincent. He'd gotten better at lying over the years. Isabella had taught him. She'd taught him how to control his face, his voice, his body language, how to sell a story, how to make people believe whatever he needed them to believe. Now he was using those skills on her. "Things change," he finally said. "The organization needs fresh energy, new perspective." "You mean younger?" "I mean relevant. You've been the architect, Isa, but architects don't run empires, they design them." "And what does Vivian do?" "She understands the current landscape, social media, influencer networks, the next generation of political power. She's connected in ways you're not." Isabella felt something cold settle in her chest. Not anger, not hurt. Something colder. Recognition. He actually believed this. He'd convinced himself that Vivian's Harvard degree and her youth and her Instagram following somehow mattered more than 12 years of infrastructure. He'd forgotten, or maybe never understood, that the empire he was so proud of existed only because Isabella held it together with both hands. "You're an idiot," she said quietly. Vincent's expression hardened. "Watch yourself." "Or what?" Isabella stepped closer. "You'll intimidate me? Threaten me?" "Vincent, I know where everybody is buried, literally and figuratively. I know every account, every shell company, every politician you've bought, every judge you've compromised. I know it all because I built it all, which is why you're not going anywhere." He drank his scotch, studying her over the rim. "You think I'm pushing you out? No. You're still valuable, still important, but the public face needs to change. Vivian will handle external relations. You'll focus on the technical side, behind the scenes, where you've always been most effective. Behind the scenes, invisible, erased." "Get out," Isabella said. "Get the fuck out of my apartment." Vincent set down his glass. "This is my apartment. Everything in this building belongs to the DeLuca Financial Group. Everything belongs to me." He walked out. Isabella stood alone in her museum penthouse, surrounded by expensive things she didn't want, and felt the last thread of whatever she'd been holding on to finally snap. She picked up her phone, made a call. "It's me," she said when someone answered. "I need you to activate Protocol Blackwater. Complete system access, full authorization." The voice on the other end hesitated. "That will destroy everything." "I know." "Isabella Sati, 48 hours, starting now." She ended the call. Then she opened her laptop and began typing. By sunrise, New York had changed. The financial news networks broke the story first. Anonymous sources. Leaked documents. Suddenly, every media outlet in America was running the same headline with slight variations. Shadow Queen, the woman who actually built the DeLuca empire. Forensic accountant turned criminal architect, the Isabella DeLuca story. Who really runs New York's most powerful financial empire? It's not who you think. The stories were devastating in their detail. 12 years of infrastructure, 14 billion in assets, shell corporations in 17 countries, charitable foundations that laundered money through disaster relief and scholarship programs, political donations that bought influence across 40 states, and behind it all, Isabella DeLuca. Not Vincent. Isabella. The documents proved it. Contract signatures, system architecture blueprints, strategic memos in her handwriting, board meeting recordings where her voice calmly explained how to move $200 million through 3 continents without triggering a single federal alert. By noon, the DeLuca offices were surrounded by reporters. By 2 p.m., federal investigators announced they were reopening multiple corruption cases. By evening, Vincent's phone was ringing constantly. Politicians returning donations, investors demanding explanations, business partners suddenly unreachable. Isabella watched it all from her penthouse, laptop open, scotch untouched on the table beside her. Her phone rang. "Vincent." She answered. "What did you do?" His voice shook with rage. "What the fuck did you do?" "I told the truth," Isabella said calmly. "I thought you'd appreciate that. Transparency, fresh perspective. Isn't that what the organization needs? You destroyed us. I destroyed the lie. The empire is fine. The infrastructure is intact. The money is safe. But everyone knows now who actually built it. They'll come after you. The feds will come after both of us," Isabella finished. "Difference is, I have records. I have proof of every decision, every order, every transaction. I can show exactly who authorized what." Silence. Then quietly, "You're bluffing." "Am I?" She could hear him breathing, calculating, trying to figure out how much she actually had. "This is a mistake," Vincent said. We can fix this. Come to the office, we'll make a statement together. United front, power couple. We've weathered worse." "No, we haven't." Isabella, see, I'm done, Vincent. Done being invisible. Done being behind the scenes. Done being the architect while you play king. You want to replace me? Fine. But you don't get to keep what I built." "You're talking crazy." 48 hours, Isabella said. "That's how long you have before the real documents drop. The ones showing who ordered what, who knew what, who profited from what. 48 hours to decide what your testimony is worth." "Testimony? The FBI is going to come for both of us. When they do, Whoever talks first gets the better deal. That's how this works, right? First one to flip wins? She could almost hear his mind racing. You wouldn't. I already did. Isabella ended the call. Then she opened a new browser window and began drafting an email to her attorney, one of 3 attorneys she'd retained secretly over the past 6 months, none of whom knew about the others. The email was simple. Prepare immunity documentation. I have information regarding federal corruption, money laundering, and RICO violations spanning 12 years. I'm ready to testify. She hit send. Then she poured herself another scotch, walked to the window, and watched the sun set over Central Park. Somewhere in the city below, Vincent was panicking, making calls, trying to control the narrative, trying to save himself. He didn't understand yet that there was no saving either of them, but there was choosing how they burned. The next 36 hours moved like a fever dream. FBI agents raided the DeLuca offices at dawn. Isabella watched it on the news from her penthouse, black SUVs, tactical teams, agents carrying boxes of files out the front entrance while reporters shouted questions nobody answered. Her phone rang constantly. She ignored it. Lawyers, colleagues, people she'd worked with for years suddenly desperate to know what she'd told the feds, what evidence she had, what she was planning. She told them nothing. On the second day, an envelope arrived via courier. No return address. Inside, a single photograph. Isabella and Vincent at their wedding, 12 years ago. She was smiling. He was smiling. They looked happy. They looked real. On the back, handwritten in ink, she recognized it didn't have to be this way. She burned it. That afternoon, her lead attorney called. The FBI wants to meet, he said. They have questions about the financial structures. They're offering immunity in exchange for testimony. What kind of immunity? Full. Federal crimes related to the DeLuca organization. But Isabella, they want everything. Names, details, transactions. They want you to build their entire case. Good. You understand what this means? You'll be testifying against people who... I understand. Silence on the line. Then, there's something else. Vincent's attorney reached out. He wants to negotiate. Isabella's grip tightened on her phone. Negotiate what? He's claiming Vincent had limited knowledge of the financial operations, that you designed the systems without his authorization, that he was, and I quote, manipulated by his wife into participating in schemes he didn't fully understand. She laughed. Actually laughed. He's blaming me? He's building a defense. And Isabella, it might work. If he testifies first, if he controls the narrative, he can paint himself as the legitimate businessman who trusted the wrong person. The victim. That son of a bitch. We need to move faster. The FBI... Set up the meeting. Tomorrow. I'll tell them everything. She ended the call and stood at the window, watching Manhattan glitter in the twilight. Vincent was trying to save himself by throwing her under the bus. Of course he was. She should have expected it, should have planned for it. Except part of her hadn't believed he'd actually do it. Part of her, some stupid, naive part she thought she'd killed years ago, had believed that despite everything, despite the affairs and the lies and the betrayal, they were still partners. That the empire mattered more than ego. That loyalty meant something. She'd been wrong. The door to her penthouse opened. She hadn't heard the lock, hadn't heard footsteps. She spun around. Vivian Cross stood in the doorway. Not panicked, not afraid. Perfectly calm in a black blazer and designer jeans, looking like she'd just come from a coffee meeting. How did you get in here? Isabella demanded. Vivian held up a key card. Vincent gave me access to all properties. Security systems, too. She walked into the apartment like she owned it, examining the art on the walls. Nice place. Little cold for my taste, but nice. Get out. In a minute. Vivian turned, meeting Isabella's eyes. I wanted to talk first, woman to woman, before this gets messier. Before it gets messier? Vivian, the FBI is dismantling the entire organization. No, Vivian interrupted. They're dismantling your organization. The infrastructure you built, the systems you designed. But organizations can be rebuilt. Infrastructure can be replaced. The real question is who survives to do the rebuilding. Isabella stared at her. What are you talking about? Vivian smiled. You think this was an accident? The Gala. Your name disappearing. Vincent pulling away. You think that just happened? Something cold crawled up Isabella's spine. I've been planning this for 8 months, Vivian continued, since before Vincent and I even met, since before I applied for the consulting position, since before you ever heard my name. You're lying. Am I? Vivian walked to the bar, poured herself a drink without asking. Adrian Vale sends his regards, by the way. Adrian Vale, billionaire, private equity titan, one of Vincent's biggest rivals. You work for Vale. I work with Vale. Difference matters. He wants the DeLuca infrastructure, the shell companies, the offshore accounts, the political connections. He's wanted it for years, but Vincent would never sell. And you were too smart to be bought. So you seduced Vincent and destroyed us from the inside. Not destroyed, repositioned. See, the federal investigation isn't random, Isabella. It's surgical. Specific people at the FBI receive specific documents about specific crimes, documents that came from me, documents that implicate you and Vincent but somehow miss the actual infrastructure. Isabella felt her world tilt. When the smoke clears, Vivian continued, the DeLuca empire will be toxic, poisoned. Nobody will touch it, except Adrian Vale, who will acquire it for pennies on the dollar through bankruptcy proceedings and offshore liquidation, and I'll be there to help him run it. With Vincent, actually. He's already agreed. Vincent knows? Vincent suspects, but he's choosing not to ask too many questions. Because right now his choice is prison or partnership, and Adrian is offering partnership. Isabella couldn't breathe. The room felt smaller, darker. You're wondering about the immunity deal, Vivian said. The one the FBI is offering you. Here's what they didn't tell you. They're offering Vincent the same deal. First one to testify gets immunity, second one gets buried. He wouldn't. He already did. Vivian pulled out her phone, showed Isabella a document. Vincent's signature at the bottom. Federal Witness Cooperation Agreement, dated yesterday. He sold you out 12 hours ago. Isabella read the document. The words blurred. Her hands shook. Vincent had betrayed her. Actually betrayed her. Not just professionally, not just romantically. He'd signed a federal cooperation agreement to testify against her, to blame her, to save himself while she burned. And Vivian had orchestrated the whole thing. I wanted to tell you in person, Vivian said. Professional courtesy. You built something impressive, Isabella. Really impressive. But you forgot the first rule of criminal empires. Never be irreplaceable. Because the moment you're irreplaceable, you're also a liability, and liabilities get eliminated. She walked to the door, paused. Oh, and one more thing. The FBI raid tomorrow? They're not coming to offer immunity, they're coming to arrest you. Vincent's testimony gives them probable cause. So if I were you, I'd start running. Tonight. Vivian left. Isabella stood alone in her penthouse, federal documents on her phone, betrayal burning in her chest, and 48 hours of careful planning suddenly collapsing into chaos. Vincent had sold her out. Vivian had outmaneuvered her. Vale was stealing her empire. And the FBI was coming. She looked at her laptop, at the Protocol Blackwater files still waiting in encrypted folders. At 12 years of evidence she'd compiled as insurance. Insurance she'd never actually planned to use, because using it meant destroying everything. The empire, the money, the infrastructure, all of it. But what was the alternative? Let Vincent testify? Let Vivian and Vale steal what she'd built? Let them walk away rich while she rotted in prison? No. If she burned, everyone burned. Isabella opened her laptop and typed a command she'd hoped she'd never type. Execute Blackwater. Full authorization. 0 hour. Immediate. The screen blinked. Confirmation request appeared. Warning. This action is irreversible. All assets will be liquidated. All accounts will be dissolved. All infrastructure will be destroyed. Estimated completion, 40 minutes. Proceed? Isabella's finger hovered over the enter key. 40 minutes to destroy 12 years of work. 40 minutes to erase an empire. 40 minutes to make sure nobody got what they wanted. Outside, police sirens wailed in the distance, coming closer. Isabella pressed enter. The screen went black for 3 seconds. Then lines of code began cascading down the display. Green text on darkness, moving too fast to read. Account numbers. Routing codes. Transfer authorizations. 12 years of financial architecture beginning to cannibalize itself from the inside out. Isabella watched the numbers blur and multiply. Her hands were shaking, not from fear, from something else, something that felt almost like relief. Blackwater Protocol initiated Stage 1. Account liquidation, 0 hours, 38 minutes, 47 seconds. Remaining. 38 minutes. That's how long it would take to erase everything. The offshore accounts in the Caymans, the shell corporations in Luxembourg, the charitable foundations that existed only on paper, the real estate holdings spread across 14 states, the investment portfolios worth hundreds of millions, all of it dissolving into digital vapor. Her phone exploded with notifications, texts, calls, emails. People across 3 continents suddenly watching their account balances plummet to 0 in real time. She ignored them all. Instead, she opened a new window and began typing commands, not to stop Blackwater, but to redirect it. The protocol was designed to destroy, but destruction could be surgical, precise. She could choose where the money went before it vanished. Children's hospitals, scholarship programs, trauma centers, domestic violence shelters, addiction recovery facilities, real charities, legitimate operations that didn't exist to launder money or buy politicians. If her empire was burning, at least something good would survive the fire. Her fingers moved across the keyboard, rerouting millions of dollars per minute. Account 7743-B. In Grand Cayman, 4 million to St. Vincent's Children's Hospital. Shell Company in Zurich, 8 million split between 3 scholarship funds. Real estate liquidation in Miami, proceeds to women's shelters across Florida. The sirens outside were getting louder. Isabella glanced at the window. Blue and red lights reflecting off the building across the street. 3 police cars. No, 4, pulling up to her building entrance. They were here. She had maybe 5 minutes before they made it to the 63rd floor. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Isabella. The voice was male, older, calm. This is Special Agent Frank Caruso, FBI. I'm downstairs in your building. I need you to listen very carefully. She said nothing. We have a warrant for your arrest, Caruso continued. Money laundering, RICO violations, conspiracy. You're looking at 25 years minimum, but it doesn't have to go that way. Let me guess. You want me to testify? I want you to survive. Vincent already signed his deal. He's blaming everything on you. Says you manipulated him, built the systems without his knowledge. That he was trying to go legitimate, but you kept pulling him back. Isabella laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. And you believe him? Doesn't matter what I believe. Matters what I can prove. And right now, Vincent's version is the one on record. You want to tell a different story? You need to talk to me, tonight. How long do I have? We're coming up now. 2 minutes, maybe 3. Isabella looked at her screen. Blackwater still running. 34 minutes remaining. I need 10 minutes, she said. You don't have 10 minutes. Then you're going to miss the biggest corruption scandal in federal history. She kept her voice level. Cold. Because in 34 minutes, evidence of every bribe, every payoff, every dirty transaction involving senators, judges, and federal agents is going to disappear forever, unless you give me time to preserve it. Silence on the line. Then, what are you talking about? I activated a failsafe. It's erasing everything. Financial records, communication logs, documentation spanning 12 years. If you want any of it, you need to let me work. Isabella, 10 minutes, Agent Caruso, then I'm all yours. But interrupt me now and you get nothing. More silence. She could hear him breathing, calculating. You're recording this call, Isabella said. You have my confession on tape. Money laundering, conspiracy, everything. I'm not running. I'm not resisting. I'm trying to help you build your case, but I need 10 minutes. 5, Caruso said. You get 5, and if you try to run, I won't. She ended the call. 5 minutes. Isabella's fingers flew across the keyboard. She wasn't just redirecting money anymore. She was compiling evidence. The real evidence. The documents showing who knew what, who authorized what, who benefited from what. Every senator who took a bribe. Every judge who fixed a case. Every federal agent who looked the other way. Every business executive who partnered with the DeLuca organization knowing exactly what it was. And yes, every decision Vincent made, every order he gave, every signature on every document that proved he wasn't some manipulated victim, but a willing, eager participant in everything they'd built. She packaged it all into encrypted files, 37 separate folders, each one containing enough evidence to destroy a career, a company, or a political dynasty. Then she uploaded them to a server Vincent didn't know about, a backup system she'd established years ago as insurance. The files would sit there, encrypted, until she decided what to do with them, or until someone decided for her. The apartment door crashed open. Isabella didn't look up. She kept typing, fingers steady, even as she heard boots on marble, voices shouting, multiple people entering her space. Hands where we can see them. She finished the last upload. Hit enter. Then slowly raised her hands and turned around. 6 FBI agents in tactical gear, weapons drawn. Caruso standing behind them in a suit that had seen better days, watching her with tired eyes. It's done, Isabella said. The evidence is preserved. You'll get access to everything, but we need to talk first. Caruso nodded to his team. They lowered their weapons slightly, but didn't holster them. Stand up, Caruso said. Slowly. Isabella stood. One of the agents moved forward with handcuffs. Is that necessary? She asked. Standard procedure. The metal was cold against her wrists. Click, click. The sound seemed impossibly loud in her quiet apartment. Caruso walked closer, studying her face. You look calm. Should I be panicking? Most people do when they're about to spend the next 2 decades in prison. I'm not most people. Something that might have been respect flickered across his face. Then it was gone. Let's go, he said. They walked her out of her penthouse, past the expensive art, past the designer furniture, past the life she'd built that had never really felt like hers. In the elevator, Caruso stood beside her while 2 agents flanked her other side. You meant what you said on the phone? He asked quietly. About testifying? Yes. Against everyone? Everyone. Including Vincent? Isabella met his eyes. Especially Vincent. The elevator descended. 63 floors. She watched the numbers drop on the display, felt gravity pulling at her stomach. When they reached the lobby, camera flashes exploded through the glass doors. Reporters everywhere, news vans, crowds of people with phones recording everything. Jesus, one of the agents muttered. Caruso glanced at Isabella. Someone tipped them off. Vivian, Isabella said. Who? Doesn't matter. They walked her through the lobby. The crowd surged forward, reporters shouting questions over each other. Isabella, did you build the DeLuca empire? Is Vincent testifying against you? How much money did you launder? Are you pleading guilty? Isabella kept her face blank, empty. She'd learned that from Vincent, how to show nothing when cameras were watching. They put her in the back of an SUV. Caruso climbed in beside her. The vehicle pulled away from the curb, leaving the chaos behind. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Caruso said, You activated that failsafe before I called, didn't you? Yes. So you were already destroying evidence when I gave you those 5 minutes. I was preserving it. There's a difference. Not legally. Legally, I'm fucked either way. Isabella looked out the window at Manhattan sliding past. At least this way, the truth comes out. The truth? Caruso laughed without humor. You sound like you think you're the hero in this story. I don't think I'm anything. I just know how it ends. How's that? Everyone loses. Me, Vincent, Vale, Vivian, all of us. The only question is how much damage we do on the way down. Caruso was quiet for a while, then, This evidence you preserved, it really implicates federal agents? 3 of them, 1 in your department. His jaw tightened. Names. Not yet. First, I want to see the deal you're offering. You're not in a position to negotiate. I have documentation of 12 years of federal corruption. I built financial systems that moved money for half the criminal organizations on the East Coast. I know every politician who took a bribe, every judge who fixed a case, every businessman who partnered with us. Isabella turned to face him. So yes, Agent Caruso, I'm absolutely in a position to negotiate. They stared at each other. The SUV turned onto FDR Drive, heading downtown toward Federal Plaza. Finally, Caruso said, Full immunity. Federal crimes related to the DeLuca organization, in exchange for complete testimony and access to all evidence. And protection? Witness protection if necessary. I'm not hiding. Then security. We can arrange. I don't need security. I need a laptop and a room where I can work. Caruso frowned. Work on what? Building your case. You want to take down an empire? I'll show you how. Every vulnerability, every weak point, every person who's going to lie under oath. I'll give you everything. Why? The question hung in the air between them. Why would she burn her own creation? Why destroy the things she'd spent 12 years building? Why betray everyone she'd ever worked with? Isabella thought about Vincent standing in her apartment, telling her she needed to stay behind the scenes. Thought about Vivian smiling while explaining how she'd orchestrated everything. Thought about 12 years of being invisible while other people took credit for her work. Because I'm tired, she said quietly. Tired of lying. Tired of hiding. Tired of watching people steal from me while pretending we're partners. If I'm going down, I want it to mean something. Caruso studied her face. You know they're going to destroy you. The media, the public. They're going to call you a criminal, a manipulator, the woman who corrupted the system. Let them. And you're okay with that? Isabella looked out at the city, Manhattan glittering in the darkness. Millions of people living their lives, completely unaware that by morning, the biggest corruption scandal in modern history would be breaking across every news channel in America. I stopped being okay with things a long time ago, she said. Tag. Federal Plaza at midnight looked like something from a dystopian film. Concrete and glass and harsh fluorescent lighting, security checkpoints, metal detectors, armed guards watching everyone who entered. They took Isabella through a side entrance, down corridors that smelled like stale coffee and government bureaucracy, past offices where prosecutors were working late, building cases, destroying lives with paperwork and legal precedent. The interrogation room was exactly what she expected. Gray walls, metal table, chairs bolted to the floor, mirror that was obviously two-way glass, camera in the corner recording everything. Caruso uncuffed her. Sit. Isabella sat. You want water? Coffee? Coffee. Black. He left. The door locked behind him. Isabella was alone with her reflection in the mirror. She looked terrible, hair disheveled from the rain earlier, makeup smeared, the diamond earrings Vincent gave her still glittering against her skin like tiny accusations. She took them off and set them on the table. Caruso returned with coffee in a foam cup that was probably giving her cancer. She drank it anyway. My partner's on his way, Caruso said. Agent Morrison. He'll be recording your statement. This is voluntary, but anything you say can be used in court. You understand? Yes. You want a lawyer present? Eventually. Not yet. The door opened. A younger agent entered, Morrison, presumably. Late 30s, tired eyes, carrying a laptop and a stack of folders that hit the table with a heavy thud. Isabella DeLuca, Morrison said, sitting down across from her. We've been trying to meet you for 3 years. Sorry I was busy. He didn't smile. Let's start with the basics. How long have you been operating the DeLuca financial network? 12 years, since I married Vincent. And the money laundering operations? Started 6 months after the wedding. Small at first, wire transfers, cash businesses, simple stuff. Simple stuff. Morrison opened one of the folders. We're talking about $14 billion in assets. Now. Back then it was maybe $200 million. Mostly drug money, some gambling, construction kickbacks. The Castellano family had no real financial infrastructure. They were just moving cash around, hoping nobody noticed. So you built them an infrastructure. I built everyone an infrastructure. Castellano, Moretti, the Russians, the Albanians. Anyone who needed money moved cleanly. Caruso leaned forward. You're saying you laundered money for multiple criminal organizations? I'm saying I created a system, a marketplace. People came to us because we were good at what we did, better than anyone else. And Vincent ran this operation? Isabella laughed. Vincent ran nothing. Vincent smiled for cameras and shook hands and made people feel important. I designed every system. I established every shell company. I vetted every partner. Me, not Vincent. Morrison and Caruso exchanged glances. That contradicts what Vincent told us, Morrison said carefully. Of course it does. Vincent's trying to save himself. He says you manipulated him. Bullshit. That you leveraged your position in the DA's office to... Also bullshit. Isabella set down her coffee. You want to know what really happened? Vincent was drowning. He owed money to people who were going to kill him. He had no skills except violence and no future except prison or death. I saw an opportunity. I showed him how to turn his world into something legitimate looking. He agreed. We built it together. Together, Caruso repeated. Okay, fine, I built it. He watched. But he knew. Every step, every decision, every transaction. Vincent isn't stupid. Violent, yes. Short-sighted, absolutely. But not stupid. Morrison pulled out another document. According to his testimony, you kept him isolated from the financial operations. He claims he didn't understand. Show me. What? Show me his testimony, the actual document. Morrison hesitated, then slid the papers across the table. Isabella read quickly. Vincent's statement was masterful. She had to admit that. He painted himself as the reformed criminal trying to go straight while his brilliant but morally corrupt wife pulled him back into darkness. He admitted to knowing about certain irregularities, but claimed Isabella assured him everything was legal. He said he trusted her expertise, believed her when she said the foundations were legitimate. It was convincing, emotionally resonant, the kind of story juries loved. It was also a complete lie. You have the board meeting recordings? Isabella asked. What board meetings? March 2019, DeLuca Financial Group Quarterly Review, August 2020, Strategy Session regarding the Moretti Partnership, December 2022, Discussion of offshore expansion into Cyprus. All recorded, all with Vincent present, asking detailed questions about transaction structures and risk mitigation. Morrison's pen stopped moving. You recorded board meetings? I recorded everything. Vincent knew. He didn't care because he thought the recordings were leverage against our partners. He didn't realize they were leverage against him. Where are these recordings? The server I uploaded to before you arrested me, along with emails, signed contracts, wire transfer authorizations with his signature, and 12 years of documentation proving Vincent wasn't some manipulated victim, but an active, enthusiastic participant in everything we built. Caruso and Morrison stared at her. You're saying you can disprove Vincent's entire testimony? Caruso asked. I'm saying I can destroy it. Completely. Morrison looked at Caruso. Something passed between them, some unspoken communication Isabella couldn't read. Then Morrison said, If that's true, Vincent's immunity deal is worthless. Yes. Which means we need your testimony more than his. Yes. Which means you have leverage. Yes. Caruso stood up, walked to the corner, ran his hand through his hair. He looked exhausted. Fuck, he said quietly. Morrison kept his eyes on Isabella. What do you want? Full immunity. Not just federal crimes. State crimes, too. Everything. We can't guarantee state. Then talk to the Manhattan DA, the Attorney General, whoever you need to talk to. Because if I'm testifying against everyone. That includes state-level prosecutors and judges. Morrison's eyes narrowed. You're saying state prosecutors are compromised? I'm saying the corruption goes deeper than you think. Federal, state, local. Vincent and I paid off judges in 4 states. We made donations to prosecutors' campaigns. We funded political organizations that endorsed candidates friendly to our interests. The whole system is contaminated. Jesus Christ, Caruso said from the corner. So here's my offer, Isabella continued. I give you everything, names, dates, amounts, recordings, documents. I testify in every trial. I build your entire case. In exchange, I walk. You won't walk, Morrison said. You'll do time. Then I don't testify. You don't have a choice. I absolutely have a choice. I can plead the 5th. I can claim attorney-client privilege on half the documents. I can drag this out for years while your corruption scandal falls apart because you can't prove who knew what. Isabella leaned forward. Or I can hand you the biggest case of your career. Your choice. The room went silent. Morrison looked at Caruso. Caruso looked at the ceiling. Finally, Morrison said, I need to make some calls. He left. Isabella and Caruso sat in silence. She finished her coffee. It was cold now. Disgusting. She drank it anyway. You're good at this, Caruso said. At what? Negotiation. Most people in your position that panic, you're treating it like a business deal. It is a business deal. No, it's your life. Isabella looked at him. Same thing. Caruso shook his head. You really don't care, do you, about what happens to you? I care about not spending 25 years in prison. But beyond that? Beyond survival? You don't care that your husband betrayed you, that your empire is collapsing, that by tomorrow everyone will know what you did. Isabella thought about that, about Vincent, about Vivian, about 12 years of building something she'd convinced herself mattered. No, she said finally. I don't care, because none of it was ever real anyway. Morrison came back 20 minutes later with 3 other people. A woman in her 50s wearing an expensive suit, assistant U.S. attorney, Isabella guessed. A younger man with a briefcase, probably another prosecutor, and someone Isabella recognized. Michael Reeves, chief of the Manhattan DA's white-collar division. She'd met him at fundraisers, donated to his boss's campaigns. Their eyes met. He looked away first. Isabella, the woman said, sitting down. I'm Sandra Chen, assistant U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York. We need to discuss terms. I already stated my terms. Full immunity isn't possible. Then we're done here. Chen's jaw tightened. You're accused of laundering $14 billion. Oh, I didn't launder $14 billion. I moved it. There's a difference. Most of that money was legitimate investment funds, real estate acquisitions, private equity. Yes, some of it was dirty, maybe $3 billion over 12 years, but the rest was legal. That's not what the forensic analysis... Your forensic analysis is wrong, because you're looking at gross transaction volume, not net proceeds from illegal activity. If you actually charge me with laundering $14 billion, any competent defense attorney will shred your case in court. Chen and Morrison exchanged glances. Isabella continued, but you're not interested in a court case. You're interested in taking down the corruption network, the politicians, the judges, the federal agents on the take, Vincent, Vale, all of them. I can give you that, but not if I'm sitting in prison. We can offer reduced sentencing. Not good enough. Isabella, but let me be clear. Isabella looked at each of them in turn. I have evidence of federal crimes that span 12 years and involve dozens of public officials. I have recordings, documents, wire transfers, everything you need to prosecute the biggest corruption case in modern history. But that evidence is encrypted, secured, and the only person who can access it is me. You're saying you'll withhold evidence? Reeves spoke for the first time. Isabella looked at him. I'm saying the evidence exists. Whether you get access depends on whether we reach an agreement. That's obstruction. That's negotiation. Chen slammed her hand on the table. Enough. You don't dictate terms here. We do. Then good luck building your case with just Vincent's testimony. I'm sure that'll hold up great when his defense attorneys find out he lied about everything. Silence. Chen stood up. We need to discuss this privately. Morrison, Caruso, with me. They filed out. Isabella was alone with Reeves. He stared at her for a long moment, then said quietly, You donated $50,000 to my boss's campaign last year. $60,000, actually. There was a second donation through a PAC. Were we targets? Or just convenient? Does it matter? To me it does. Isabella shrugged. You were useful. That's all anyone was. Reeves looked like he wanted to say something else. Instead, he just shook his head and left. Isabella sat alone in the interrogation room, watching her reflection in the two-way mirror. Somewhere on the other side, prosecutors were arguing about what to do with her, whether to give her what she wanted, whether to risk letting her walk. She wasn't worried. They'd give her the deal. They had to. Because without her testimony, their case fell apart. And they knew it. The door opened. Chen came back in. Alone. Federal immunity, she said. Complete. But you serve 5 years minimum on state charges. Money laundering, conspiracy, non-negotiable. 3 years. 5. 3. And I get to choose the facility. Chen's eyes narrowed. You're in no position. 3 years, minimum security, and full protection from retaliation. Those are my terms. Why would we agree to that? Because in 30 seconds, I'm going to tell you something that will make you realize you don't have a choice. Chen sat down. I'm listening. Isabella pulled out her phone. They'd let her keep it, stupidly, and opened an encrypted message. Showed Chen the screen. It was an email, dated 3 days ago. Sender. Vincent DeLuca. Recipients: Adrian Vale, Vivian Cross, and someone named Robert Hendricks. Chen's face went white. Robert Hendricks, Isabella said. Your boss. The U.S. attorney. Vincent sent him $250,000 3 days ago through a shell company, in exchange for inside information on the federal investigation, including details about which charges you were planning to file. Chen stared at the email, her hands shaking slightly. That's impossible, she whispered. It's real. I have the wire transfer records, the shell company documentation, everything. Your boss is compromised, and if you don't give me full immunity, state and federal, I'm going public with all of it. Tonight. Chen looked up. You're bluffing. Am I? Their eyes locked. Then Chen stood up, walked to the door, stopped. You really are the architect, she said quietly. You built all of this. The empire, the corruption, everything. Yes. And now you're burning it down. Yes. Why? Isabella thought about Vincent, about Vivian, about 12 years of being invisible. Because, she said, I'd rather rule in hell than serve in someone else's heaven. And if I can't rule anymore, then hell comes for everyone. Chen left. Isabella sat alone, waiting. Her phone buzzed. Message from an unknown number. You made a mistake. She frowned, typed back, Who is this? Adrian Vale. And you just made a very serious mistake. Before Isabella could respond, the lights went out. The room plunged into darkness. Complete. Absolute. Then she heard something, a sound that didn't belong. Footsteps. Coming from inside the room. But that was impossible. She was alone. The door was locked. She'd watched everyone leave. Someone grabbed her from behind. Hand over her mouth, arm around her throat. She tried to scream but couldn't breathe. Tried to fight, but the grip was too strong. A voice whispered in her ear. Male. Calm. You really thought you could threaten everyone and walk away? The pressure on her throat increased. Her vision blurred, darkened. The last thing she heard before unconsciousness took her was, Vale sends his regards. Then nothing. Isabella woke to cold water hitting her face. She gasped, choking, trying to breathe. Her hands were zip-tied behind her back, plastic cutting into her wrists. She was in a different room now, smaller. No windows, concrete walls. Not Federal Plaza anymore. Someone turned on a light. Harsh. Blinding. Vivian Cross stood in front of her, holding an empty water bottle. Welcome back, Vivian said. Isabella's head throbbed. Her throat ached. What? Where? Somewhere the FBI won't find you, at least not for a while. Vivian tossed the bottle aside. You really shouldn't have threatened Vale. That was stupid. He bribed Hendricks. We all bribed Hendricks. That's not the point. The point is you forgot something important about criminal empires. The people at the top don't negotiate. They eliminate. Isabella tried to stand but couldn't. Her legs weren't working right. What did you do to me? Sedative. You'll be fine in an hour, assuming you live that long. Footsteps behind her. Isabella turned, or tried to. Her neck barely moved. Vincent walked into view. He looked different, harder, the charm completely gone from his face. Hello, Isa, he said. She stared at him. You did this? Did you really think I'd let you testify against me? Let you destroy everything? You signed a deal with the FBI and... That deal is worthless now, thanks to you. Vincent crouched down to her level. See, when you showed Chen that email about Hendricks, you destroyed federal jurisdiction. Hendricks is going to recuse himself. The case is going to be transferred to a different district. And all those immunity agreements? Void. Isabella's blood went cold. Which means, Vincent continued, we're starting over. New prosecutors, new deals, and this time you don't get to be the star witness. The evidence is encrypted on a server we can't access. Yet. But we have time, and you're going to give us the password. Never, Vincent smiled. We'll see. He stood up, nodded to someone behind her. Isabella tried to turn, but arms grabbed her, held her still. Wait, she started. Then pain exploded through her body. Electric, searing, every nerve on fire. She screamed. The pain stopped. She gasped for air, tears streaming down her face. That was level 3, a voice said. Male, unfamiliar. There are 10 levels. Most people break at 7. Who? Isabella could barely speak. Adrian Vale's head of security, Vincent said. Former military, very experienced in information extraction. You're torturing me. We're having a conversation. I ask questions. You answer. Simple. The FBI thinks you escaped during the blackout. They're looking for you, but this building doesn't exist on any map. We have time. Isabella's mind raced. The blackout. Someone had cut power to Federal Plaza, then grabbed her during the chaos. This was planned, coordinated. Vale had people inside the FBI building. The password, Vincent said, for the encrypted server. Fuck you. Vincent sighed, nodded. The pain came again. Longer this time. Isabella screamed until her voice broke, until there was nothing left but raw sound. It stopped. She sagged forward, held up only by the arms gripping her shoulders. We can do this all night, Vincent said, or you can give us what we want and this ends. Isabella lifted her head, looked at him through tears. You're going to kill me anyway. Probably. But you can choose how you die, fast and painless, or very, very slowly. Then I choose, she coughed, tasted blood. I choose to watch you burn. Vincent's expression didn't change. Your choice. He turned to leave. Wait, Isabella gasped. He stopped. The password, she said. It's a phrase. 27 characters. I'll need to type it. Vincent studied her face, trying to determine if she was lying. Untie her hands, he said finally. But if she tries anything, I won't. They cut the zip tie. Blood rushed back into her fingers, painful. She flexed them slowly. Someone brought a laptop, set it on a table in front of her. Isabella stared at the screen, at the login prompt for the encrypted server. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. She had one chance, one move. If she failed, they'd torture her until she broke or died. But if she succeeded, Isabella started typing. Not the password, something else. A command buried deep in the server's architecture. A final failsafe she'd built years ago and never told anyone about. Execute Scorched Earth Protocol. The screen blinked. Warning. This will permanently delete all data and destroy server infrastructure. This action cannot be undone. Confirm? What is she doing? Vivian moved closer. Isabella typed, yes, and pressed enter. The screen went black. Then red text appeared. Scorched Earth initiated. All data will be deleted in 60 seconds. No. Vincent grabbed the laptop. What did you do? I destroyed it, Isabella said. All of it. Every piece of evidence, every recording, every document. In 60 seconds, it's all gone. You stupid! Vincent threw the laptop across the room. It shattered against the concrete wall. You were going to kill me anyway, Isabella said. At least this way, nobody gets what they want. Vincent's face twisted with rage. He pulled out a gun. Vincent, wait! Vivian started. He pointed it at Isabella's head. For a moment, everything stopped. Isabella looked up at him. At the man she'd married 12 years ago. The man she'd built an empire for. The man who was about to kill her. Do it, she said quietly. At least then I'll finally be free. Vincent's hand shook, finger on the trigger. Then the door exploded inward. FBI, hands up! Agents poured into the room, tactical gear, weapons drawn, shouting commands. Vincent spun, raising his gun. 3 shots. He dropped. Isabella flinched, felt warm blood splatter across her face. The room erupted into chaos. More agents. Vivian on the ground, hands behind her head. Someone cutting the zip ties from Isabella's ankles. Caruso suddenly beside her, helping her stand. You okay? He asked. Isabella nodded, couldn't speak. We tracked your phone, Caruso said. GPS signal. When you disappeared, we followed it here. Isabella looked down at Vincent's body. Blood spreading across the concrete floor. His eyes still open. Still staring. Dead. He was dead. She'd built him an empire and he'd tried to kill her and now he was dead. She should feel something. Relief. sadness, something. But there was nothing, just emptiness. "The server," she said hoarsely. "The evidence is gone," Caruso finished. "We monitored your activity, saw what you did. You destroyed everything." "Yes." "Why?" Isabella looked at him. "Because if I was burning, everyone was burning with me." Caruso studied her face, then helped her toward the door. Outside, emergency vehicles filled the street. Ambulances, police cars, more FBI agents, and cameras, reporters, already broadcasting live. Isabella stood in the doorway, looking at the chaos, the flashing lights, the gathered crowd. Somewhere in that crowd, her story was being told, twisted, shaped into whatever narrative people wanted. Shadow Queen, criminal mastermind, victim, villain. She didn't care anymore. She'd destroyed the empire, destroyed the evidence, destroyed everything. And somehow, in the wreckage, she'd found the only thing that mattered. The truth was finally out, even if nobody believed it. Which call Isabella DeLuca. She stood in a courtroom 6 weeks later. Federal charges, state charges, conspiracy, money laundering, obstruction. Without the evidence she'd destroyed, prosecutors struggled to prove most of it. But there was enough. Testimony from witnesses, financial records the FBI had recovered before Blackwater completed, paper trails she'd missed, enough to convict. The judge looked down at her. Elderly, tired, probably looking forward to retirement. "You've pleaded guilty to multiple felonies," he said. "Do you have anything to say before sentencing?" Isabella thought about that. About Vincent, dead in a warehouse. About Vivian, currently negotiating her own plea deal. About Vale, under investigation for kidnapping and attempted murder. About the empire she'd built and destroyed. "Yes," she said finally. "I regret waiting so long to tell the truth." The courtroom murmured. The judge frowned. "That's all?" "That's all." He nodded. "Isabella DeLuca, you are hereby sentenced to 5 years in federal prison, followed by 3 years supervised release." Isabella stopped listening. 5 years. She could survive 5 years. And when she got out? No. There was no when she got out. There was only now. Only this moment. Only the choice she'd made to burn everything down rather than let predators inherit her creation. They led her away in handcuffs. The cameras followed. The reporters shouted questions. And Isabella DeLuca, the woman who built an empire and destroyed it in the same night, walked toward whatever came next. Not free, but no longer a ghost. The transport van smelled like sweat and disinfectant. Isabella sat in the back, wrists cuffed to a chain around her waist, watching New York disappear through the small reinforced window. The city she'd conquered, the city she'd lost. Just buildings and lights and people who'd already forgotten her name. 5 years, 60 months, 1,826 days. The numbers rolled through her head on repeat, like a broken prayer to nothing. The federal correctional facility was 3 hours upstate. Medium security, they'd said. Not the worst. Not the country club prisons where white-collar criminals played tennis and read books. But not maximum either. Somewhere in between. Purgatory with razor wire. The guard driving didn't speak. Neither did his partner riding shotgun. They'd processed hundreds of inmates. Isabella was just another number, another body to warehouse. Her phone had been confiscated. Her accounts frozen. Her penthouse seized as criminal proceeds. Everything she'd built, every material trace of Isabella DeLuca, was gone. Liquidated, redistributed, erased. All she had left were the clothes on her back and 5 years to think about how she'd arrived here. The van turned onto a long access road. Trees on both sides. Then chain-link fence. Then concrete walls topped with coiled wire that glinted in the afternoon sun. Home. They processed her in a room that felt like a DMV designed by sadists. Fingerprints, photographs, strip search, medical exam, delousing. She stood naked under fluorescent lights while a corrections officer who looked 19 checked her for contraband and tattoos and anything that might identify her as gang-affiliated. "Any health conditions?" the officer asked, not looking up from her clipboard. "No." "Medications?" "No." "History of mental illness?" Isabella almost laughed. "Define mental illness." The officer looked up. It's a yes or no question. No. They gave her a uniform, gray pants, gray shirt, numbers stenciled across the back. She dressed slowly, her hands still shaking from withdrawal, not from drugs, but from everything, from the life she'd lived for 12 years, from power, from control, from mattering. DeLuca. A different guard, older, appeared in the doorway. Let's go. She followed him through corridors painted institutional beige, past other inmates in gray uniforms, past common rooms with bolted-down furniture, past cells with thin mattresses and metal toilets. They stopped at a cell on the second tier. This is you, the guard said. Bed assignment might change. Behave yourself, and you'll stay in Gen Pop, 'cause problems, and we move you to administrative segregation. Understand? Yes. Meals are 6 a.m., noon, and 5 p.m. Lights out at 10. You work laundry starting tomorrow. Questions? Isabella looked into the cell. 6 by 8 feet, 2 bunks, a sink, a toilet with no seat. A woman already occupying the bottom bunk, watching her with dark eyes that had seen things Isabella was about to learn. No questions, Isabella said. The guard left. Isabella stepped inside. The cell door remained open. She'd learn later they only locked them during count and overnight, but it felt closed anyway, trapped. Her cellmate sat up, mid-40s, Hispanic, prison tattoos on her forearms. She studied Isabella for a long moment. You're the money lady, she finally said. From the news. Isabella said nothing. They're calling you the Shadow Queen. That true? Does it matter? The woman shrugged. Guess not. I'm Rosa. I run book on the Yankees games. You bet? No. Good. Most people here are idiots about it. Rosa lay back down. Top bunk's yours. Don't touch my stuff. Don't ask about my case. Don't talk when I'm sleeping. We'll get along fine. Isabella climbed onto the top bunk. The mattress was thin, stained. It smelled like whoever had it before her. Sweat and fear and resignation. She lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to voices echo through the corridor. Laughter, shouting, someone crying. The sounds of women learning to survive in cages. This was her life now. No power, no control, no empire. Just this cell and these people and 5 years of penance for crimes she'd actually committed. She closed her eyes, tried not to think about Vincent's body on the concrete floor, tried not to think about Vivian's smile, tried not to think about anything. Failed. The first 2 months were the worst. Isabella learned the rhythms of prison life the way you learn anything, through pain and repetition. Wake at 5:30 when the lights slammed on. Stand for count while guards walked past checking faces against rosters. Breakfast in the cafeteria where she learned to eat fast and keep her eyes on her tray. Work detail in the laundry, feeding industrial machines that never stopped roaring. Lunch. More laundry. Dinner. Recreation time in the yard where women lifted weights or played cards or just walked in circles like animals pacing cages. Then lockdown at 10. Every day the same. Every day an eternity. She kept to herself, didn't make friends, didn't join any of the groups that formed along racial or geographic lines. The other inmates watched her with curiosity at first, the rich lady who'd built an empire. But curiosity faded when she proved boring. She didn't tell stories, didn't complain, didn't cause drama. She was gray, invisible, the way she'd been for 12 years before everything burned. Rosa was decent as cellmates went. They coexisted in the small space without conflict. Rosa ran her gambling operation quietly. Isabella read books from the prison library and worked her shifts and said nothing to anyone about anything, but she was waiting. That was the secret, the thing nobody knew. She was waiting for something. She didn't know what yet, but she could feel it coming, like pressure before a storm. The letter arrived on a Tuesday in her 3rd month. Mail call happened after dinner. The guard read names and inmates lined up to collect their envelopes. Isabella never got mail. Nobody knew where she was except her attorney, and they only communicated through official channels. So when the guard called DeLuca, she almost didn't respond. DeLuca, you deaf? Isabella stood, walked to the front, took the envelope. No return address, just her name and the prison address in typed letters. Back in her cell, she opened it carefully. Rosa watched from the bottom bunk, curious but not asking. Inside was a single sheet of paper, and Isabella's world inverted. The paper contained a bank statement, an account she'd never seen before, an offshore bank in the Seychelles, current balance, $473 million. Her hand started shaking. This wasn't possible. She'd destroyed everything. Blackwater had liquidated all the accounts. She'd redirected what she could to charities and burned the rest. There was nothing left. Except there was. She kept reading. The account had been opened 8 years ago, created by someone named Sarah Mitchell, which wasn't a real person. It was one of Isabella's cover identities, one she'd used for exactly 3 transactions before abandoning it as too risky. But someone had reactivated it. Someone had been moving money into this account for 8 years. Small amounts at first, then larger, building an offshore fortune so carefully hidden that even Isabella hadn't known it existed. Until now. At the bottom of the statement, handwritten in ink, "Did you really think I'd let you destroy everything? The empire lives. It just doesn't need you anymore. V. Vincent." But Vincent was dead. Isabella's breath came faster. Her vision tunneled. Vincent was dead. She'd seen his body, watched FBI agents shoot him, seen the blood. Unless... No, that was impossible. She read the letter again, then again, looking for something she'd missed, some explanation that made sense. "You okay?" Rosa asked. Isabella looked up. "I need to make a phone call. It's not phone time. I need to make a call now." Rosa studied her face. Whatever she saw there made her nod. "I'll get Johnson. She owes me a favor. But you're going to owe me. Whatever you want." Rosa left, came back 5 minutes later with a corrections officer Isabella had seen around but never spoken to. Johnson, apparently. 30-something. Looked perpetually bored. "Make it quick," Johnson said. "And if anyone asks, this didn't happen." She led Isabella to the phone bay, turned away while Isabella dialed. The number she called belonged to her attorney, Michael Reeves, the one person who might have answers. He picked up on the 3rd ring. "Reeves? It's Isabella." Silence. Then, "You're not supposed to call me from prison. This line isn't secure." "Is Vincent alive?" Longer silence. "What?" "Answer the question. Is Vincent DeLuca alive?" "Isabella, you watched him die. Is he alive?" She could hear Reeves breathing, thinking, calculating. "I can't discuss this over the phone," he finally said. "That's a yes." "That's not—" "Isabella, listen to me carefully. Whatever you think you know, you need to forget it, for your own safety. Tell me the truth or I'll—" "You'll what?" "You're in prison. You have no leverage, no power, no options. If you start asking questions about things that are classified—" "Classified? I've said too much already." "Reeves." He hung up. Isabella stood there, phone dead in her hand, while something cold and terrible settled into her chest. Vincent was alive. The FBI hadn't killed him. They'd staged his death, made everyone believe he was gone. And while Isabella sat in prison, Vincent was out there somewhere with $473 million she'd earned and an empire she'd built. She'd been played, not by Vivian, not by Vale, by the FBI. They'd let her think she'd won, let her destroy the evidence, let her testify against herself. And then they'd made a deal with Vincent, the real deal. Immunity, witness protection, a new life. In exchange for what? For making her the villain, for letting her take the fall while he walked away clean. Isabella hung up the phone, turned to Johnson. "I need to get out of here." Johnson laughed. "Yeah, you and everyone else. I'm serious. I have information about federal corruption, about... Lady, I don't care if you have the nuclear codes. You're an inmate. You're here for 5 years. Nothing you say changes that. But get back to your cell before someone notices you're out." Isabella walked back through the corridors in a daze, her mind racing. Vincent was alive. Vincent had $400 million. Vincent was free while she stopped walking. The letter. Someone had sent her that letter. Someone wanted her to know. But why? Well, she found out 3 days later. Another letter. Same anonymous delivery. This one thicker. Inside, photographs. Vincent at a sidewalk cafe in Buenos Aires, coffee in hand, sunglasses on, smiling. Date stamp, 2 weeks ago. Vincent boarding a private yacht in Monaco. Date stamp. Last month. Vincent shaking hands with a man Isabella recognized, Senator Marcus Webb. One of the politicians she'd testified against. One of the people currently on trial for corruption. Except in the photo, Webb wasn't wearing handcuffs or sitting in a courtroom. He was drinking champagne on Vincent's yacht. Isabella stared at the photographs until her hands cramped. Webb wasn't in prison. He was free, living his life like nothing had happened. She checked the news archives on her next library rotation, found what she was looking for buried in small articles nobody had bothered to read. Senator Marcus Webb, charges dismissed due to lack of evidence. Judge Sarah Tomlinson, resigned before trial, no charges filed. CFO David Martinez pleaded guilty to minor fraud, sentenced to 6 months house arrest. One by one, the people she'd testified against were walking, getting deals, disappearing into comfortable lives. The corruption scandal she'd created, the biggest in modern history, was collapsing. And nobody seemed to care. The third letter arrived a week later. This one had a return address, a law firm in Manhattan, Sterling and Associates. Isabella opened it with shaking hands. Dear Ms. DeLuca, we represent a client who wishes to remain anonymous. Our client has information regarding the federal investigation into the DeLuca organization and the subsequent prosecutions. Specifically, our client has evidence that 1. Vincent DeLuca entered federal witness protection in exchange for testimony against low-level associates while maintaining hidden assets. 2. Senior FBI officials knowingly allowed this arrangement in exchange for closing high-profile cases without implicating politically sensitive defendants. 3. Your testimony was used selectively to prosecute minor players while major conspirators negotiated immunity. 4. The evidence you destroyed was redundant. Complete copies existed in FBI possession before Blackwater was activated. Our client is willing to provide this evidence to you. In exchange, our client requests a single meeting. If you agree, respond to this letter. We will arrange transportation. This offer expires in 30 days. Sincerely, Sterling and Associates. Isabella read the letter twice. Someone knew everything. Someone had been watching the whole time. And someone wanted to meet. The smart play was to ignore it. This was obviously a trap, another manipulation, another person trying to use her. But the smart play had gotten her 5 years in prison while Vincent drank champagne on yachts. Fuck the smart play. She wrote back that same day. What? The meeting was arranged for 3 weeks later. A special attorney visit. Approved through channels Isabella didn't understand and didn't question. They brought her to a private room, not the normal visiting area with phones and glass partitions, but an actual conference room with a table and chairs and a door that closed. Isabella sat down, waited. The door opened. Adrian Vale walked in. Isabella's blood went cold. Vale looked exactly like his photos. 60-something, silver hair, expensive suit that probably cost more than most people's cars. He moved like someone who'd never been afraid of anything because money had insulated him from fear his entire life. He sat down across from her, smiled. Hello, Isabella. She said nothing. I imagine you're wondering why I'm here, Vale continued. After all, last time we were in proximity, I had you kidnapped and tortured. That must create some awkwardness. If you're here to gloat, I'm here to offer you a way out. Isabella laughed, bitter, ugly. There is no way out. I'm serving 5 years. For crimes you actually committed. But what if you could prove you weren't the only one who committed them? What if you could prove federal prosecutors made deals with the real criminals while scapegoating you? You sent the letters. I did. Why? Vale leaned back in his chair. Because Vincent fucked me. He was supposed to go down with you. That was the arrangement. You'd both take the fall, the empire would collapse, and I'd acquire the infrastructure. Instead, he made a separate deal, kept the money, walked away clean, and now he's out there building version 2.0 of the DeLuca empire with my money. Your money? I invested $300 million into the shell companies. Vincent was supposed to liquidate them and split the proceeds. Instead, he kept everything. The FBI helped him hide it, and now I'm out $300 million while he's living in Argentina drinking piña coladas. Isabella processed this. So you want revenge? I want what's mine, but more importantly, I want Vincent exposed. arrested, stripped of everything he stole, and you, Vale pointed at her, are the only person who can make that happen. I have no evidence. I destroyed it all. But the FBI has evidence, complete copies. And if we can prove they colluded with Vincent to hide assets while prosecuting you, we can overturn your conviction, get you released, and destroy Vincent in the process. You testify about what really happened. I provide the financial documentation showing where Vincent hid the money. My lawyers file motions. Media gets interested. Suddenly people start asking why the FBI let the architect of the empire walk while imprisoning his wife. Isabella stared at him. You expect me to trust you? You tortured me. That was business. This is also business. I don't need you to trust me. I need you to want what I want. Vincent destroyed. Everything else is negotiable. And if I say no, Vale stood up, then you serve 5 years while Vincent spends your money. Your choice. He walked to the door, knocked, waited for the guard. One more thing, he said without turning around. Vivian Cross is dead. Isabella's heart stopped. Killed herself 3 weeks ago. Pills. Left a note saying she couldn't live with what she'd done. Vale looked back at her. Except she didn't kill herself. Vincent had her murdered because she knew too much. Because he's tying up loose ends. And Isabella? He smiled. You're a loose end. The guard opened the door. Vale left. Isabella sat alone in the conference room, mind reeling. Vivian was dead. Vincent was alive and tying up loose ends. And Isabella was locked in a prison with no way to protect herself. She thought about Rosa, about the routine she'd built, about the 5 years stretching ahead of her like an endless gray hallway, 5 years assuming Vincent didn't reach her first. If Vale was telling the truth, if Vincent really was eliminating witnesses, then Isabella's life expectancy had just dropped to weeks, maybe days. Prison was supposed to be the punishment. Now it was a death sentence. Back in her cell, Isabella lay on her bunk staring at the ceiling. Rosa was at dinner. The cell block was quiet for the moment. She had to think, had to plan. Vale wanted her to testify against the FBI, to expose their deal with Vincent, to overturn her conviction. But could she trust Vale? The man had tortured her. The man was only interested in recovering his investment. Still, what choice did she have? Stay in prison and wait for Vincent to have her killed? Or take Vale's offer and maybe get out alive? Her mind went to the bank statement. $473 million. Money she'd earned, money Vincent had stolen. If she could prove it existed, prove Vincent hid it with FBI help, she could... Footsteps outside the cell. Isabella tensed. It wasn't time for count, wasn't time for anything. 2 guards appeared. Not Johnson. 2 she didn't recognize, both large, both expressionless. DeLuca, come with us. Why? Disciplinary hearing, let's go. Isabella's instinct screamed. This was wrong. She hadn't violated any rules, hadn't gotten written up. What's the charge? We'll discuss it with the warden. Now move. She climbed down from her bunk, had no choice. You didn't argue with guards. They walked her through the corridors, but not toward the administrative wing where disciplinary hearings happened. Toward the industrial area, the laundry, the workshops. Where are we going? Isabella asked. No answer. They turned into a maintenance corridor, concrete walls, no cameras. Isabella's blood turned to ice. Wait. One of the guards grabbed her arm. The other opened a door, storage room, dark, empty. They shoved her inside. She stumbled, fell, hit the concrete floor hard. The door closed behind them, locked. One guard turned on a flashlight. The beam hit Isabella's face, blinding. Vincent DeLuca sends his regards, the guard said. Then he pulled out a knife. Isabella scrambled backward. Wait, we can... Nothing personal, just business. He moved toward her. Isabella's back hit the wall. Nowhere to go. No weapon. No way out. This was it. This was how she died, murdered in a storage room by guards Vincent had paid off. The guard raised the knife. Isabella closed her eyes, heard a sound, a crack, like wood breaking, opened her eyes. The guard was on the floor, not moving. The second guard beside him, also down. Rosa stood in the doorway, holding a mop handle like a baseball bat. You just gonna sit there? Rosa asked. Or you gonna run? Isabella stared at her. How did you? I keep tabs on crooked guards. Occupational necessity. Now move unless you want more to show up. Isabella stood, legs shaking. Rosa, why? Because I know what it's like when someone powerful wants you dead. And because you're gonna owe me big when you get out. Now shut up and follow me. Rosa led her through back corridors Isabella had never seen. Service tunnels, maintenance passages, the prison's hidden architecture. Where are we going? Isabella whispered. Somewhere they can't reach you tonight. Tomorrow we figure out next steps. They emerged in the medical wing. Rosa pushed Isabella into a supply closet. Stay here. Don't make noise. I'll come back when it's clear. Rosa, you're welcome. Now hide. Rosa left. Isabella crouched in the darkness among boxes of gauze and antiseptic, trying to control her breathing. Vincent had tried to have her killed. Vale had been right. She was a loose end, and Vincent was eliminating loose ends, but she'd survived. Barely. Thanks to Rosa. Which meant she had time. Not much, but some. Time to decide. Stay in prison and wait for Vincent's next attempt, or trust Vale and fight back. It wasn't really a choice. Isabella pulled out the letter from Sterling and Associates, the one offering her a way out. In the darkness of the supply closet, while guards searched the prison for her and Vincent planned his next move from Argentina, Isabella made her decision. She was done being the victim, done being the loose end, done being invisible. If Vincent wanted her dead, he'd have to work harder. Because Isabella DeLuca, the woman who'd built an empire from nothing, who'd survived betrayal and federal prosecution and assassination attempts, wasn't done fighting. Not yet. Not ever. The empire had taken everything from her. Now she was going to take it back, or burn what was left to ashes. Either way, Vincent would learn what Isabella had known for 12 years. The architect always has one more blueprint, one more failsafe, one more way to make the whole structure collapse. And this time, when the empire fell, Vincent would fall with it. Isabella sat in the darkness, making plans. Outside, alarms began to sound. They'd found the guards. The hunt was on. But Isabella wasn't running anymore. She was preparing for war. The alarms screamed through the prison like wounded animals. Isabella pressed herself against the supply closet wall, listening to boots thunder past. Voices shouting, radios crackling, the entire facility mobilizing to find her. She had maybe 10 minutes before they checked every room, every closet, every space large enough to hide a body. Her body. The one Vincent wanted dead. She forced herself to breathe slowly. In through the nose. Out through the mouth. The way she used to before high-stakes negotiations. Before meetings where millions of dollars hung on her ability to stay calm. Except this wasn't about money anymore. This was about survival. The door handle rattled. Isabella froze, hand pressed over her mouth to muffle her breathing. Locked, a voice said outside. Male, bored. Check the pharmacy. Footsteps faded. Isabella exhaled. Checked her watch. Stolen from one of the unconscious guards, though she didn't remember taking it. Muscle memory. Even now, even here, she was still stealing time. 7 minutes until the next patrol sweep. She couldn't stay here. Rosa had saved her life, but Rosa couldn't get her out. Nobody could. The prison was locked down. Every exit sealed. Every guard looking for inmate 47823, the number that used to be Isabella DeLuca. Unless an idea formed. Dangerous. Stupid. The kind of plan you made when all the good options were gone. She opened the supply closet door slowly, checked the corridor. Empty. The medical wing was 3 doors down. She'd seen it when Rosa brought her here. Isabella moved fast, kept low, reached the medical office and tried the handle. Locked. Of course it was locked. She looked around, found a fire extinguisher mounted on the wall, grabbed it, felt the weight, 15 pounds of metal and compressed chemicals. Smashed the door handle. The glass panel shattered, alarm screaming louder now, but it didn't matter. They already knew she was missing. Isabella reached through, unlocked the door from inside, stepped into the medical office. Computers, files, medicine cabinets, and a phone. She grabbed it, dialed the number from Vale's business card, the one she'd memorized before destroying the card because that's what you did when you spent 12 years living in a world where evidence killed you. It rang twice. Sterling and Associates. This is Isabella DeLuca. I need to speak to Adrian Vale. Right now. Ms. DeLuca, Mr. Vale is... Tell him Vincent tried to have me killed 20 minutes ago. Tell him I'm accepting his offer. Tell him if he wants his $300 million back, he needs to get me out of this prison tonight. Silence on the line. Then, hold please. Muzak. Fucking Muzak, while guards hunted her through a federal prison. Vale's voice came on. I'm listening. 2 guards just tried to kill me. Vincent's people. They'll try again. I know, I warned you. So get me out. Isabella, I can't just extract you from federal custody. You're a billionaire. You own senators. You buy politicians like most people buy coffee. Don't tell me you can't make one inmate disappear. Vale was quiet, thinking, calculating costs and benefits and risks. It would require significant resources, he said finally, legal challenges, bribes, political pressure. It would be expensive and complicated and extremely illegal. So I need to know you're committed, that you'll testify, that you'll give me everything I need to destroy Vincent and recover my investment. Isabella heard boots in the corridor, getting closer. Yes, she said, whatever you want, just get me out. 48 hours. Can you survive that long? I don't know. Then survive it anyway. I'll have my lawyers file emergency motions, medical crisis, due process violations, whatever gets traction. But Isabella, if you die before I extract you, this whole thing collapses. So don't die. He hung up. Isabella set down the phone, looked around the medical office, at the medicine cabinets full of drugs she could use, at the computer still logged into patient records, at the scalpel sitting in a sterilization tray. She grabbed the scalpel, felt the weight. Sharp, surgical, designed to cut through flesh with precision, not much of a weapon. But more than nothing, the door burst open. 3 guards, weapons drawn. On the ground! Now! Isabella dropped. Hands behind her head, the scalpel pressed against her palm, hidden. They dragged her up, cuffed her wrists, real cuffs this time, steel, not the plastic zip ties from before. Checked her for weapons. Missed the scalpel because they weren't expecting a skinny white-collar criminal to be dangerous. Mistake. They walked her through the corridors toward administrative segregation, solitary confinement, where they put inmates who posed risks, where she'd be isolated, alone, where Vincent's people could finish the job without witnesses. Wait, Isabella said. I need to speak to the warden. Shut up. I have information about corruption in this facility. Guards on the take. I need... One of them shoved her forward. I said shut up. They reached the segregation wing. Steel doors, concrete cells. Silence thick enough to choke on. The guard opened a cell. Empty. 6 feet by 6 feet. A mattress on the floor. A drain in the corner. Nothing else. They pushed her inside. Someone will bring food eventually, the guard said. Or not. Depends how cooperative you feel. The door slammed. Locks engaged. Heavy. Final. Isabella stood in the darkness, breathing hard. 48 hours. Vale said 48 hours. She could survive 48 hours. Maybe. What? Time moved differently in solitary. No windows, no clock, no way to measure hours except by counting heartbeats and trying to stay sane. Isabella sat on the mattress, back against the wall, scalpel hidden in her palm. She'd been in worse situations. The warehouse where Vale's people tortured her, the interrogation room with the FBI, the night Blackwater activated and the Empire burned. She could survive this, had to survive this, because Vincent was out there living her life with her money, and she was the only person who could stop him. The door opened. Isabella tensed, ready. But it wasn't guards, it was Rosa. How did you... Isabella started. I run half the contraband in this place. You think locked doors stop me? Rosa stepped inside, closed the door behind her. You got maybe an hour before they realize I'm not supposed to be here. Why are you helping me? Because you're about to do something stupid, and I want to know what it is before you get us both killed. Isabella almost smiled. Vale's getting me out, 48 hours. Vale? Rosa's expression darkened. The billionaire who tortured you? Same one. Isabella, that's insane. Vincent tried to have me killed tonight. He'll try again. Vale's offer is the only way out. Rosa sat down on the mattress beside her, both of them in gray uniforms in a concrete cell. Two women who'd survived worlds designed to break them. You trust him? Rosa asked. No, but I trust that he wants Vincent destroyed, and right now that's enough. Rosa nodded slowly. You're going to need help. On the inside. Someone watching your back until Vale's people extract you. You don't have to. Well, I'm not offering, I'm telling you. You saved my cousin's kid 3 years ago. Medical fund you set up through one of your charities. Kidney transplant. She'd be dead without it. Isabella stared at her. I don't remember. You helped thousands of people. You wouldn't remember, but I do. So I'm paying the debt. Rosa stood up. 48 hours. I'll keep the crooked guards away from you, but after that we're even. Deal. Rosa knocked on the door. It opened, someone on the outside helping her, the contraband network functioning smoothly. She left. Isabella was alone again, but not helpless. Not anymore. The next 36 hours were a war of inches. Isabella stayed in solitary, ate the food they brought, or most of it, checking each meal for poison or sedatives, slept in 2-hour bursts with the scalpel in her hand, counted time by the guard rotations and the sound of footsteps in the corridor. Rosa kept her word. Twice Isabella heard arguments outside her cell, voices raised, Rosa's voice cutting through, dismissing guards who'd come to check on the prisoner, buying time. On the second day, a lawyer showed up. Not Vale's people. Someone else. A woman in her 30s wearing a cheap suit and carrying a briefcase that had seen better years. Ms. DeLuca, I'm Jennifer Martinez from the Federal Public Defender's Office. I need to speak with you about your case. They brought Isabella to a consultation room, the same one where she'd met Vale. Martinez sat down, opened her briefcase, pulled out documents. 3 hours ago, a federal judge issued an emergency order for your medical evaluation. You're being transferred to a civilian hospital for psychiatric assessment. Isabella's heart rate spiked. What? Adrian Vale's legal team filed motions citing deteriorating mental health, suicide risk, and inadequate medical care. The judge agreed. You're being moved tonight. This is the extraction. Martinez didn't confirm or deny, just kept her face neutral. The transport is scheduled for 8 p.m. You'll be taken by ambulance to Metropolitan Hospital. Security will be minimal due to your nonviolent status. And then? And then that's outside my jurisdiction. Martinez stood up, packed her briefcase. Good luck, Ms. DeLuca. Whatever you're planning, I hope it works. She left. Isabella sat alone, mind racing. This was it. Vale's play. Get her transferred to a civilian hospital with minimal security. Then extract her before anyone realized what was happening. Illegal. Insane. Probably going to fail. But it was happening. Guards came at 7:30, different ones. Not the crooked guards from before. These looked professional, bored, just doing their jobs. They cuffed her, walked her through the facility toward the transport entrance. Other inmates watched through cell windows as she passed. Rosa among them. They made eye contact. Rosa nodded once. Good luck. Isabella nodded back. Thank you. Outside, an ambulance waited. White and red, lights off, engine running. 2 EMTs stood beside it. Young, nervous, probably legitimate medical personnel who had no idea they were part of an extraction operation. The guards handed Isabella over. Suicide watch, psychiatric hold. She's your problem now. One of the EMTs, male, mid-20s, helped Isabella into the ambulance. We're going to Metropolitan Hospital. It's about an hour drive. Just try to relax. Isabella lay on the gurney. They strapped her down. Chest restraints, leg restraints, not taking chances. The ambulance pulled away from the prison. Isabella watched through the small window as the facility disappeared behind them. Chain link fence, razor wire, concrete walls, freedom on the other side. Temporary, fragile, but freedom. The ambulance drove through darkness, country roads, then highway, heading toward the city. 15 minutes passed. Then the EMT's phone buzzed. He checked it. His expression changed. We need to pull over, he said to the driver. Why? Just do it. The ambulance slowed, pulled onto the shoulder. What's going on? Isabella asked. The EMT looked at her. Change of plans. The back doors opened. Adrian Vale climbed inside. Hello, Isabella, he said. Time to disappear. Don't. They transferred her to a black SUV idling behind the ambulance. No conversation, no explanation. Vale's people worked with the efficiency of a military extraction, removed the restraints, gave her civilian clothes, jeans, t-shirt, jacket, everything in her size. Vale had planned this carefully. Where are we going? Isabella asked, changing in the back of the SUV while Vale politely looked away. Safe house, Manhattan. Somewhere the FBI won't find you while my lawyers work. Work on what? Overturning your conviction, getting you into witness protection, making you legally alive again. Vale handed her a phone. First, we need you to make a statement. On video. Everything you know about Vincent. The offshore accounts, the FBI's deal, all of it. And then? Then we use it as leverage. We go public if we have to. Force the Justice Department to admit they let the real criminal walk while imprisoning his wife. Isabella took the phone. When? Tonight, soon as we're secure. The SUV drove through darkness toward Manhattan, toward the city Isabella had conquered and lost. She looked at Vale. Why are you really doing this? It's not just about the money. Vale was quiet for a moment, then, Vincent DeLuca made me look like a fool. He stole from me, manipulated me, made deals behind my back. And I'm a billionaire. I don't get made a fool of without consequences. So this is revenge. This is justice. There's a difference. Not really. Vale smiled. We're more alike than you want to admit, Isabella. We both built empires. We both got betrayed. We both want Vincent destroyed. The only difference is I have resources and you have information. Together we can finish this. What happens after? After Vincent's arrested? After you're exonerated? After justice is served? Vale looked out the window at Manhattan glittering in the distance. You disappear. New identity. New life. Somewhere Vincent's people can't reach you. I don't want a new life. I want my life back. That life is gone. The empire's gone. Everything you built is ashes. The question is whether you accept that and move forward, or whether you cling to ghosts until they drag you down. Isabella didn't answer, because Vale was right, and she hated him for it. The SUV entered Manhattan through the Queensboro Bridge, past neighborhoods Isabella used to know, past buildings she'd owned, past the life she'd lived before federal prosecution and prison cells and assassination attempts. They pulled into an underground parking garage, descended 3 levels, stopped at a private elevator. This way, Vale said. They rode the elevator to the 42nd floor. The doors opened directly into a penthouse apartment. Expensive, secure, windows overlooking Central Park. 3 people waited inside. A woman with a camera, a man with a laptop, another man in a suit who looked like a lawyer. This is the team, Vale said. They'll record your statement, then we'll review it and decide how to proceed. Isabella walked to the window, looked out at the city, at the park where she used to walk, at the buildings where she'd made deals that moved millions of dollars. All of it so far away now, so impossible to touch. Ms. DeLuca? The woman with the camera. We're ready when you are. Isabella turned, looked at the camera, at the red light waiting to record her confession. This was the moment, the point where she either committed fully to destroying Vincent or walked away and survived in whatever shadows were left. No middle ground, no compromise. She sat down in front of the camera. My name is Isabella DeLuca, she said, and I'm here to tell you about the biggest criminal conspiracy in modern history, about how I built an empire, about how it was stolen, and about how the FBI helped cover it up. The camera rolled. Isabella talked for 3 hours straight. She told them everything, every detail, every account, every transaction, the offshore banks, the shell companies, the politicians, the judges, the federal agents who'd looked the other way. And Vincent. Everything about Vincent, how he'd played her, how he'd betrayed her, how he'd made a deal with the FBI to disappear while she took the fall, how he was living in Argentina with $473 million she'd earned. When she finished, the room was silent. Vale nodded slowly. That's enough to destroy him. Will it work? If we release it publicly? Yes. The media will explode. The Justice Department will have to investigate. Vincent's immunity deal will collapse. He'll be arrested within 48 hours. Then do it. Isabella, once we go public, there's no going back. You'll be a fugitive. The FBI will hunt you. Your life becomes running and hiding until the legal system catches up. I'm already a fugitive. At least this way Vincent comes down with me. Vale studied her face. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything. Vale turned to his team. Upload it. Every media outlet, every news network, every political blog. Make it impossible to ignore. The man with the laptop started typing. Isabella watched, felt something cold and final settle in her chest. This was it, the endgame, the moment she'd been building towards since Vincent first betrayed her. No victory, no triumph, just mutually assured destruction. But if she was burning, Vincent was burning with her. The man looked up from his laptop. It's live, going viral already. Vale checked his phone, smiled. CNN just picked it up. So did the Times. This is moving fast. Isabella walked to the window, looked out at Manhattan, at the city that had made her and broken her and now would watch her destroy everything she'd built. Her phone, the one Vale had given her, buzzed. Text from an unknown number. You made a mistake, a fatal one. I'm coming for you. And this time, nobody saves you. V. Isabella stared at the message. Vincent knew, already. Somehow he'd found out about the video, about her location, about everything, and he was coming. Vale, Isabella said quietly. We have a problem. Vale looked up. What? She showed him the message. His expression darkened. How did he get this number? I don't know, but he knows where I am. That's impossible. This location is secure, triple encrypted. Nobody outside my inner circle. Gunshots. From the hallway outside, screaming, more gunshots. Vale's security team reached for weapons, but it was too late. The penthouse door exploded inward. Men in tactical gear poured through, professional, armed, moving like special forces. Not cops, not FBI. Vincent's people. Down! Everyone down! Vale's team dropped, hands up, trained to survive. Isabella stood at the window, frozen. One of the tactical operators walked toward her, removed his helmet. Not Vincent. Someone else. Someone Isabella recognized, Agent Frank Caruso. Hello, Isabella, he said. Surprise. Her mind spun. Caruso? The FBI agent? The one who'd arrested her? You work for Vincent? She whispered. I work for whoever pays best. Vincent pays very well. Caruso smiled. You really thought you could expose federal corruption and walk away? You really thought we'd let you destroy everything? You're the leak. You told Vincent where I was. I've been telling Vincent everything since day one. Who testified? What evidence you had? How to stay ahead of the investigation? Why do you think his immunity deal worked so smoothly? Isabella's world inverted. Again. Always again. The FBI hadn't protected Vincent. The FBI had been working for Vincent. Now, Caruso said, pulling out his gun. Vincent wants you alive. He wants to deal with you personally. So we're taking a little trip to Argentina. You're going to disappear. Officially this time. No body. No evidence. Just gone. He grabbed Isabella's arm. She drove the scalpel, still hidden in her sleeve, into his hand. Caruso screamed, dropped the gun. Isabella grabbed it. Didn't think, just fired. 3 shots. Center mass. The way Vincent had taught her years ago when he was still pretending they were partners. Caruso went down. The room exploded into chaos. Vale's security returned fire. Tactical operators dove for cover, bullets tearing through expensive furniture and glass and everything Isabella had spent the last 3 hours trying to save. She ran. Toward the window, toward the only exit that made sense when all the others were blocked. 42 floors up, no parachute, no rope, just glass and gravity and one desperate choice. Isabella looked back, at Vale bleeding on the floor, at his team fighting Vincent's people, at the empire burning one more time. She looked down at Manhattan, at the city that had given her everything and taken it all away. Then she looked at the window, at her reflection staring back. 12 years ago she'd made a choice, to build an empire, to sacrifice her soul for power. Now she had to make another choice, die fighting, or die running. Isabella raised the gun, fired at the window. The glass shattered. Wind rushed in, cold, sharp. carrying the smell of the city. She looked down. 42 floors. Death waiting at the bottom. Behind her, Caruso's people advancing. No way out. No escape. Just one final choice. Isabella stepped onto the window ledge. 42 floors of nothing between her and the ground. And for the first time in 12 years, she smiled. Because Vincent thought he'd won. But Isabella DeLuca, the woman who'd built an empire from dirty money and disappeared into shadows and survived everything the world threw at her, still had one more move, one more failsafe, one more way to make sure everyone burned together. She pulled out her phone with her free hand, typed a final message. If you're reading this, I'm dead. Everything you need to destroy Vincent DeLuca, Adrian Vale, Agent Frank Caruso, and everyone involved in federal corruption is attached. Release it. Burn them all. Isabella. She hit send to every media contact she still had. Then she dropped the phone, raised the gun, and turned to face Vincent's people one last time. You want me? She shouted over the wind. Come get me. They rushed forward. Isabella fired until the gun clicked empty. Then she stepped backward, into nothing, into 42 floors of free fall, into the final choice she'd been avoiding for 12 years. Choosing herself over the empire, choosing truth over survival, choosing to fall on her own terms rather than live in Vincent's world. The wind screamed past. Manhattan rushed up to meet her. And Isabella DeLuca, architect of empires, destroyer of kings, the woman who burned everything rather than let predators inherit her creation, closed her eyes and let go. Isabella didn't fall. The ledge was narrower than she'd thought. Her heel caught the edge. Momentum carried her backward, but her hand shot out, pure instinct, pure survival, and grabbed the window frame. She hung there. 42 floors above Manhattan, wind tearing at her clothes, fingers screaming against the metal frame. For 3 seconds, gravity waited. Then her other hand found purchase. She pulled. Muscle memory from 12 years of yoga classes she'd pretended to enjoy. Upper body strength she'd never thought she'd need. She hauled herself back through the shattered window, fell onto the penthouse floor. Glass cutting her palms, blood mixing with sweat. Alive. Still alive. The tactical operators were gone. Vale's security team dead or fled. The apartment destroyed. Bullet holes in the walls. Bodies on the floor. One of them Caruso, bleeding from the chest where Isabella had shot him. Still breathing. Barely. Isabella crawled toward him. Every movement agony, her hands shredded, her body shaking from adrenaline crash. Caruso's eyes found hers. You're insane, he whispered, blood on his lips. Yeah, Isabella said. I am. She searched his pockets, found his phone, unlocked it with his thumb while he was too weak to resist. The screen showed messages, dozens of them, all from a contact labeled V. Vincent. Isabella scrolled through, read the conversation, her hands shaking harder with every line. Vincent had orchestrated everything. The prison assassination attempt, the extraction from the hospital, even Vale's rescue operation, all of it designed to flush Isabella out, to make her think she had a chance, to get her to reveal everything she knew on camera, and then kill her. The video confession she'd recorded, the one exposing Vincent's offshore accounts and FBI corruption. It had uploaded to Vale's private server. Not public, not viral. Vincent controlled the server, had controlled it the entire time. Nothing had gone public, nothing had changed. She'd exposed herself for nothing. He played you, Caruso whispered. Again. Isabella looked at him. At the man dying on the floor, the corrupt federal agent who'd sold out his oath for money. Where is he? She asked. Won't matter. He's untouchable. Where? Caruso smiled, blood in his teeth. Argentina. But you'll never reach him. His people are everywhere. FBI, marshals, private security. He owns this entire... Isabella pressed her hand over the bullet wound. Hard. Caruso screamed. The address, she said quietly. Fuck you. She pressed harder. Caruso's scream became something inhuman. Then words. Gasping. Desperate. Buenos Aires Recoleta District, building called Palacio del Sol, penthouse, top floor. Security. Security everywhere. You can't... His eyes went glassy. He stopped breathing. Isabella stood up, legs barely supporting her. She was covered in blood, some hers, some Caruso's, some from the bodies around her. Vale was gone, maybe dead, maybe escaped. Didn't matter. She was alone again, but this time she had a location. Buenos Aires, Recoleta district, Palacio del Sol. Vincent thought he'd won, thought he'd eliminated every threat, thought Isabella would die in this penthouse or disappear into prison or give up and accept defeat. He didn't know her at all. Isabella found Vale's laptop, still intact despite the chaos. She accessed the server where her video confession was stored, the one Vincent controlled. She couldn't make it public from here. Vincent would intercept it immediately. But she could do something else. She opened the video file, downloaded it to a flash drive she found in Vale's desk. Then she accessed the offshore account records, the ones showing Vincent's $473 million. Downloaded those too. Finally, she pulled up the email system, sent one message to every journalist, every prosecutor, every media outlet she could remember. Not the confession, not the evidence, just a single line. Vincent DeLuca is alive. Witness protection is a lie. Follow the money to Buenos Aires. The truth is coming. Cryptic, vague, but enough to plant seeds, enough to make people start asking questions. She grabbed the flash drive, pocketed it, found a jacket among Vale's security team's gear, put it on over her blood-stained clothes. Then she walked out of the penthouse, down the emergency stairs, 42 floors on foot, while her hands bled, and her legs trembled and her mind replayed every betrayal that had led her here. She emerged into the Manhattan night, sirens in the distance, police responding to reports of gunfire. Isabella disappeared into the crowd. Just another woman in a city of millions, anonymous, invisible, the way she'd been for 12 years. She used Vale's credit card, also stolen from the penthouse, to buy a burner phone and a ticket to Buenos Aires, direct flight, departing in 6 hours. In the airport bathroom, she cleaned herself up as best she could, washed the blood from her hands, changed into clothes she bought from a gift shop, tourist gear. Unremarkable. She looked at her reflection in the bathroom mirror, 42 years old, exhausted, broken, hair disheveled, eyes hollow. She looked like someone who'd lost everything. Good. That would make her harder to recognize. The flight boarded at midnight. Isabella sat in coach, not first class, not business, just another passenger nobody noticed. She kept the flash drive in her pocket. The evidence. The truth. The thing Vincent thought he'd erased. She didn't sleep during the 11-hour flight, just stared out the window at clouds and darkness and tried to figure out how to kill a man who owned everything. Because that's what this had become. Not justice. Not redemption. Just revenge. Pure, simple, final. Oik. Buenos Aires greeted her with heat and humidity and the smell of a city she didn't know. Isabella cleared customs using a passport Vale's people had provided. Fake identity, clean background, no flags. She took a taxi to Recoleta, the upscale neighborhood, tree-lined streets, European architecture, expensive cafes where wealthy expatriates drank coffee and pretended they hadn't fled their home countries to avoid prosecution. Vincent's world now. She found Palacio del Sol easily. 40 stories of glass and steel. Security at the entrance, cameras everywhere. Isabella walked past, didn't stop, didn't stare, just observed. She rented a room across the street, 3rd floor. Window facing the building, paid cash. Then she watched. For 2 days, she studied the building. Guard rotations, entrance protocols, delivery schedules. She ate street food and drank too much coffee and slept in 2-hour increments while her body screamed for rest. On the 3rd day, she saw him. Vincent, walking out of the building with 2 security guards, wearing a white linen shirt and sunglasses, smiling, relaxed, living the life she'd built for him. Isabella's hands tightened on the windowsill. He looked healthy, happy, untouched by consequences, while she'd lost everything. She watched him climb into a black Mercedes, watched the car pull away, followed its route with her eyes until it disappeared into Buenos Aires traffic. That night, she made her plan. Not sophisticated, not elegant, just brutal and direct. She couldn't get into the building, too much security, too many cameras. But Vincent had to leave eventually, and when he did, she'd be waiting. Moshi. The opportunity came 4 days later. Isabella had been watching every morning, timing his routines. Vincent left the building at 9 a.m. Always the same time. Always the same car. Always heading to the same cafe 3 blocks away. Creature of habit. Fatal mistake. Isabella positioned herself on the route. Cafe across from his cafe, baseball cap pulled low, sunglasses, just another tourist. Vincent arrived right on schedule. His security swept the area. 2 guards. Professional, but not paranoid. They cleared the cafe, let Vincent enter, took positions outside. Isabella waited 30 minutes. Let Vincent settle in, let the guards relax. Then she walked across the street. The guards noticed her immediately. One stepped forward. "Private party," he said in accented English. "You need to leave." "I'm here to see Vincent," Isabella said. "No one sees Mr. DeLuca without an appointment." She removed her sunglasses, met his eyes. Recognition flickered across his face. "Tell him Isabella's here," she said quietly. "Tell him she has something he wants. And if he doesn't see me right now, every journalist in America gets the flash drive I'm carrying." The guard hesitated, spoke into his radio, listened to the response, then nodded. "Go inside, slowly, hands where I can see them." Isabella walked into the cafe. Vincent sat at a corner table, espresso in front of him, laptop open, looking like any other successful businessman working remotely. He saw her. His expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Fear. Just for a second. Then it was gone. "Isabella," he said, "you're persistent. I'll give you that." She sat down across from him. The table between them felt like a gulf, like the distance between who they'd been 12 years ago and who they were now. "You're alive," she said. "Obviously. The FBI staged your death, put you in witness protection, let you keep the money." "They did." "Why?" Vincent smiled. "Because I made them a better offer than you did. I gave them low-level targets they could prosecute for headlines. You were going to expose their corruption. Which option would you take?" "I'd choose justice." "No, you wouldn't. You'd choose survival, same as everyone." He sipped his espresso. "You look terrible, by the way. You tried to have me killed. Multiple times. Business decision. You were a loose end. Loose ends get tied up." Isabella felt something cold settle in her chest. The last remnants of whatever she'd felt for this man, love, partnership, even just familiarity, died in that moment. "I have evidence," she said. "Everything. The offshore accounts, the FBI corruption, your immunity deal, all of it on a flash drive. 1 click and it goes public." Vincent's smile didn't fade. "No, you don't." "Yes, Vale's server was compromised before you even recorded your confession. Every file you downloaded was tagged with tracking software. The moment you try to upload that flash drive, my people intercept it. It never goes public, and I know exactly where you are." Isabella's blood went cold. "The message you sent from the penthouse," Vincent continued. "The cryptic one about following the money? We intercepted that too. Sent our own messages to those same journalists claiming you're a fugitive making desperate accusations. Who do you think they'll believe? The credible sources or the convicted criminal? You can't cover this up forever." "I don't need forever. I just need enough time. Another year, maybe 2, and I'll have moved the money through enough channels that nobody can trace it. I'll have established enough legitimate businesses that my past becomes irrelevant. And you?" He leaned forward. "You'll be a footnote. The woman who tried to take down the system and failed." Isabella stared at him, at the man she'd married, the man she'd built an empire for. He'd won, completely, totally. And he knew it. "Why did you let me come here?" she asked. "Why not just have your guards kill me outside?" "Because I wanted you to know, to understand, that you lost, that everything you did, the testimony, the evidence, the sacrifices, it was all for nothing." Vincent stood up. "Now my guards are going to escort you somewhere quiet. And this time, you won't survive. No rescue, no last-minute escape, just an ending." The guards entered the cafe, moving toward her. Isabella didn't move, just sat there, hands on the table. "You were right about one thing," she said quietly. "What's that?" "I don't have leverage anymore. I don't have evidence. I don't have power." She looked up at him. But I do have one last failsafe. One thing you didn't account for. Vincent's smile faltered slightly. You're bluffing. The flash drive I told you about? It's not in my pocket. It's not in my room. I mailed it 3 days ago. To someone who hates you almost as much as I do. Who? Rosa Martinez, my cellmate. The one who saved my life in prison. The one who runs half the contraband network inside federal facilities. Isabella stood up. And if I don't check in with her every 48 hours, she distributes that evidence to every inmate, every guard, every person in the prison system who has reason to hate corrupt federal agents and billionaires who buy their way out of justice. You're lying. Am I? Isabella pulled out her burner phone, showed him the sent messages. 3 days of check-ins with Rosa. The last one sent 6 hours ago. You kill me, the information spreads. You try to intercept it, you draw attention, you do nothing, and eventually someone makes copies. Someone goes public, and your perfect little escape collapses. Vincent's face went pale. So here's my offer, Isabella continued. You transfer every dollar of that offshore money back. Every account, every shell company, every penny you stole. You do it right now in front of me, and I call Rosa and tell her to destroy the evidence. That's insane. That's justice. You get to live, you get to stay free, but you don't get to keep what you stole. I'll never... Then die in prison when the evidence goes public. Your choice. They stared at each other. Two people who'd built an empire together and torn it apart. Two people who'd loved and betrayed and destroyed everything they'd touched. Vincent's jaw tightened. His hands shook slightly. Then he sat down, opened his laptop. You're making a mistake, he said. I've made lots of mistakes. This isn't one of them. He typed for 20 minutes. Isabella watched every keystroke. Watched the offshore accounts drain. Watched the money transfer to legitimate charities, children's hospitals, scholarship funds, addiction recovery centers, every organization she tried to help when Blackwater activated, $473 million. Disappearing from Vincent's control, flowing into systems that would actually help people instead of protecting criminals. When it was done, Vincent closed his laptop. You just destroyed me. No, Isabella said. I just took back what was mine. She called Rosa. It's done. Destroy the flash drive. You sure? Rosa's voice crackled through the phone. I'm sure. Then we're even. The line went dead. Isabella looked at Vincent. You're free. Broke, but free. The FBI, doesn't care. You're not worth protecting without the money. You're just another criminal who got away. She stood up. Live with that. She walked out of the cafe. Vincent didn't follow, didn't call his guards, just sat there at his table, staring at his laptop, watching his perfect escape disintegrate. Outside, Buenos Aires stretched before Isabella. Hot, humid, unfamiliar. She had no money, no passport that would hold up to serious scrutiny, no home to return to. But she had something else. She had the truth, and she'd made sure it cost Vincent everything. 6 months later, Isabella sat in a prison library in upstate New York. She'd turned herself in 3 days after leaving Buenos Aires, walked into the nearest U.S. embassy and surrendered. Federal marshals flew her back. She was processed, sentenced for escaping custody, and returned to complete her original 5-year term, plus an additional 2 years. 7 years total now. But something had changed. The media had picked up the story. Not all of it. Vincent's FBI deal was still classified, still protected. But enough. Enough to make people ask questions, enough to create investigations, enough to start unraveling the corruption networks Isabella had helped build. Senator Marcus Webb was facing new charges. Judge Sarah Tomlinson had been disbarred. 3 FBI agents had been suspended pending investigation. The empire was dying, slowly, messily, but dying. And Isabella's testimony, the real testimony, the one she'd given in dozens of depositions and court appearances over the past 6 months, was making it happen. She'd never walked completely free. The crimes she'd committed were real. The lives she'd destroyed were real. The 12 years she'd spent building criminal infrastructure couldn't be undone. But she could make sure the truth came out. All of it. Rosa walked into the library, sat down across from Isabella. Heard you're testifying against Vail next month, Rosa said. Yeah. He's going to get life. Good. They sat in comfortable silence. Two women who'd survived hell together. You regret it? Rosa asked, turning yourself in. Isabella thought about that, about Vincent drinking coffee in Buenos Aires when she'd confronted him, about the offshore accounts draining, about the choice between revenge and justice. No, she said finally. I regret a lot of things, but not that. Rosa nodded. Martinez sends her regards, by the way. The public defender says you made her career biggest corruption case she ever worked. Tell her she's welcome. Rosa stood up. Stay out of trouble, Isabella. You too. Rosa left. Isabella was alone with her books and her thoughts and 7 more years of penance. But for the first time in 12 years, she felt something she hadn't felt since before she'd married Vincent. Peace. Not happiness. Not redemption. Just peace. The acceptance that she'd done terrible things for terrible reasons, and now she was paying the price. But she'd also done one good thing. She'd told the truth. And the truth, messy and complicated and painful as it was, mattered more than any empire ever had. Thanks. 5 years later, Isabella stood before a parole board. She'd served most of her sentence, been a model prisoner, testified in 17 corruption trials, helped prosecutors dismantle the infrastructure she'd built. The board reviewed her file, asked questions, listened to her answers. Finally, the chairman spoke. Ms. DeLuca, you've committed serious crimes, built criminal enterprises, laundered billions of dollars, helped corrupt officials evade justice. He paused. But you've also provided unprecedented cooperation with law enforcement. Your testimony has resulted in 43 convictions. You've dismantled one of the largest corruption networks in federal history. Isabella said nothing, just waited. Parole is granted. You'll be released under supervision, mandatory check-ins, employment requirements, standard conditions. Violate them, and you're back here. Understand? Yes. Then you're free to go. Free. The word felt strange, foreign. Isabella left the prison 3 days later. Rosa walked her to the gates. What are you going to do? Rosa asked. I don't know. Find a job, an apartment, try to live a normal life. Normal? Rosa laughed. Isabella, you built a criminal empire and burned it down. You exposed federal corruption. You survived assassination attempts. You're a lot of things, but normal ain't one of them. Isabella smiled. Maybe I'll start small, work my way up to normal. You do that, and if you ever need anything, I know where to find you. They hugged, brief, awkward. Neither of them used to physical affection. Then Isabella walked through the gates, into New York, into the world, into whatever came next. She had $300, a parole officer's phone number, and a future that was completely uncertain. But she also had something she'd been missing for 12 years. Her name. Not Isabella DeLuca, the Shadow Queen. Not Isabella DeLuca, the criminal architect. Just Isabella. The woman who'd made terrible choices and paid terrible prices and now had a chance, however small, to become someone different. She walked to the bus stop, waited for the bus that would take her back to Manhattan. A newspaper sat on the bench. She picked it up. The headline caught her eye. Former crime lord Vincent DeLuca arrested in Argentina. Isabella read quickly. Vincent had been picked up on tax evasion charges. Something small, technical, but enough to extradite him, enough to start new investigations. He'd finally run out of immunity deals. Isabella folded the newspaper, set it down, felt nothing. No triumph, no satisfaction, just the quiet knowledge that the universe had its own way of balancing scales. The bus arrived. She boarded, found a seat by the window. Manhattan appeared on the horizon, the city she'd conquered and lost and now was returning to as nobody. Just another person with a criminal record and a complicated past and a desperate hope for redemption. The bus crossed into the city. Isabella watched the buildings slide past, the people, the life she'd been absent from for 7 years. Her phone, new, legitimate, purchased with money she'd earned from prison work programs, buzzed. Message from an unknown number. Ms. DeLuca, this is Jennifer Martinez. I represent a victims advocacy group that helps people rebuild after white-collar crime. We're looking for someone with your expertise to consult on financial literacy programs. Interested? Isabella stared at the message. Someone wanted to hire her, not to build criminal empires, to help victims, to do something that actually mattered. She typed back, "Yes, when can we talk?" The response came immediately. "Tomorrow, 2 p.m., I'll send the address." Isabella put her phone away. Outside, Manhattan glittered in the afternoon sun, full of possibility, full of people making choices, good and bad and everything in between. She'd spent 12 years building an empire on lies, spent 7 years paying for it. Now she had a chance to spend however many years remained building something true, something small, something that helped instead of destroyed. It wouldn't erase what she'd done, wouldn't redeem her, wouldn't make her a hero, but it would be real. And real was all she wanted anymore. The bus stopped at her destination. Isabella stood, grabbed her single bag. Everything she owned fit in one backpack now. She stepped off the bus into Manhattan, into the noise, the chaos, the beautiful mess of a city that never forgave but sometimes offered second chances to people who'd earned them through blood and confession and refusing to stay down. Isabella walked down the street, past buildings she used to own, past restaurants she used to frequent, past the ghost of the person she'd been. And for the first time in 12 years, for the first time since she'd married Vincent and built an empire and destroyed her soul, Isabella felt something she'd forgotten existed. Hope. Not the naive hope of youth, the hard-earned hope of someone who'd fallen to the bottom and clawed her way back up and learned that survival was its own kind of victory. She kept walking, toward whatever came next, toward a future she couldn't control or predict, toward the truth that had always been waiting beneath the lies. Some empires are built on power, some are built on fear, but the only ones that matter are built on truth. And Isabella DeLuca, architect of empires, destroyer of kings, the woman who burned everything to find herself, was finally ready to build something that would last. Not an empire, just a life. Small, honest, true. It wasn't redemption, it wasn't victory, but it was enough. And enough, she'd learned, was sometimes the most powerful thing you could have. The city moved around her, millions of people living their lives, making their choices, building their own empires and burning their own bridges and finding their own versions of truth. Isabella disappeared into the crowd, invisible again. But this time, by choice. This time, free.